From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, listeners. Welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show. Today we are Anna Little and Sharon Engel coming to you from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .coms. Sharon Engel, welcome to Conservative Commandos radio show.
Thank you, Anna Little, and I'm so happy to be on the show with you again on this wonderful Wednesday. It seems like every once in a while you and I get to co-host, and it's one of the highlights of my week when we do that, because it's always very interesting, Anna, to be on the show with you.
Well, I thoroughly enjoy it because, Sharon, I don't know if our listeners realize this, you and I date back to mutual election runs that we had, yours for the U.S. Senate and mine for the Congress, and we met in 2010 out here in New Jersey, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I love getting together with you whatever way, and Conservative Commandos makes it easy because we can both just jump on the phone and on the airwaves. So I'm really glad to be on the show with you today. And I'd like to get your take on that State of the Union last night.
Well, I think we're going to get a lot of takes on the State of the Union. Two of our guests today are going to be talking to us about that. And so I'm not sure I want to steal their thunder, and I think we want to go there when we get those guests on and really pick their brains about this. But there were a couple of things that I thought were very interesting about it, that he completely ignored the hostage situation. Of course, Iran's not calling it that. They're just detaining them, but I don't know what else you can call it when we have our servicemen detained. So I thought that was interesting that he didn't even mention it. And, of course, he always sidesteps the facts about the terrorism that's going on in the world and here in the U.S. So those were two things that I want to ask our guests about. And the other one was, I don't know if you were watching Fox, but I always like Lunz's focus group. I'm not sure that I agree with them, but I thought it was interesting that the focus group was saying, well, we just all want to get along, and that's kind of where Nikki Haley was going with her speech too. Was there's nobody right. There's a lot of blame to go around here. We just need to work together and solve our problems. And I'm not sure if I agree with that, Anna. I have to think about that for a while, because this get along to go along is kind of how we've gotten to the place where we're at. So, what was your take?
Well, I kind of agree with you on that. I mean, I do like Nikki Haley quite a bit. I'm fond of her politically. I've been to South Carolina. I think she's doing a great job in conservative leadership in South Carolina. I don't agree with the idea that in order to win this presidential election, Republicans need to come away from this idea that the liberals have painted us with as being a party of no. And they're still taking that tactic because, frankly, they don't have any other leg to stand on in election rhetoric. And I think that we would be mistaken as Republicans to think that we the people have that thought, because we the people, while the liberals were calling us a party of no, were able to take back as Republican majority the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, in spite of those accusations by the left. And I think that the leadership within the Republican Party at the national level has missed that memo, as has the President of the United States, who still thinks he's all powerful and in charge, even though he's lost control in 2 houses of the legislature. That's my take.
That's your take. Well, I think that the people's take is, yes, we got the House, we got the Senate. We may get the presidency this time. It's looking favorably toward a Republican takeover. But the problem is that our Republicans don't seem to have the courage to do what's necessary in order to right the ship of state, if you will. It seems that we're very discouraged out here in the grassroots, wondering where are our brave congressmen and women, where are our brave senators? If we have that majority, why aren't we seeing? Why are we still seeing a president that's bullying us with trying to take away our Second Amendment rights, with not meeting the terrorism head on? There's just a lot of things that he refuses to do, and yet our Congress, both houses, seem to be stymied in it. They don't seem to be able to move forward, and that has happened in some of the state legislatures where Republicans have taken the majority. I know the Republicans took the majority in Nevada, and we got the largest tax increase in the history of the state this last cycle through. So I think that's where we're seeing the grassroots frustration, even with the Republican Party.
Well, I think that's true, because there are those within the mainstream Republican Party that have forgotten their connection to the grassroots. They've forgotten who they answer to and who's in charge in our form of government, and that's we the people. So I do agree with you there. I think that the notion that we should challenge some of these folks in primaries is a valid notion. I think we want to make sure that we can maintain at least a Republican majority. We would love to have a conservative Republican majority, in my opinion, in both houses of the legislature, and a conservative Republican in that White House. And I think in that circumstance, we could not only take care of the debt and deficit spending, get our values back straightened out the way they are, it's supposed to be. And I'm talking about American values, which is, life first, liberty and the pursuit of happiness, and then family values along with that. So I think those American values need to be reestablished, and I think we can only do that with conservatives in leadership. And the only way you get conservatives in leadership is by having that conservative majority. We've tried to put conservatives there with just a Republican majority, and they get penalized. So until we accomplish that, I think we're still going to struggle. But I think a Republican majority of any kind is better than a liberal majority in these 2 houses. And at this point, we've got to maintain what we've got, move it to the right. This is where I'm sitting, and I'm very concerned about foreign affairs. I mean, this latest attack in Turkey has me concerned. I have not heard a reaction from Turkish officials with regard to movement of people or movement of military in and out of Turkey, but they had threatened that they might close their borders in light of the refugee situation prior, so I'm concerned about a reaction here. We need to be able to move troops around if we're going to combat what's going on in the Middle East. We need Turkey's cooperation there. So I don't see any strong support from the United States of America for Turkey, given this IS attack, as they call it, Islamic State attack, that occurred. And, and I think we need strong leadership now, and I hope that next year is not too late.
I think that if we're looking for strong leadership, we may be sorely disappointed. It doesn't look like there's any strong leadership in the White House, and on Capitol Hill, it doesn't look like there's really strong leadership there either, Anna. And I think that's the frustration that we're seeing in this presidential race. And I think that's why Donald Trump has really gained some momentum. You and I met with Donald Trump in August, and we saw
did,
the
and
crowd.
I have the photo. Yeah, and I have the photo to prove it, Sharon.
We might want to Facebook that one again today, just to remind people that we got to talk to this man, and we saw the crowds that flocked to hear him. And the message is a strong leadership message. That's what he is promoting, even though I'm not so sure he can be the strong leader he wants to be. He certainly is promoting that. He's the one that started that rhetoric, and I think the others who have jumped in there and said, we do need this strong leadership are gaining momentum as well. Dr. Van Carson gained momentum, and that's his message. Ted Cruz has gained momentum. That's his message. Carly Fiorina, that's her message. It's a strong message from all these presidentials. I believe the thing that's the most disconcerting, though, is that we could go to convention and have a brokered convention, and with brokered conventions, that's then it's all up for grabs, isn't it, Anna Little? That first round may be binding, but after that, it's whoever the delegates are and what their personal choice is.
Yeah, well, that is how it happens. And I think we're about to see what goes on in Iowa relative to this. I mean, I've had much discussion about this presidential race, and Donald Trump, even if he has that national lead in some of the polling, it doesn't necessarily mean he maintains it, because he's got to win Iowa, which I consider to be one of the more conservative states among Republicans.
Well, I know we've got a good lineup for our show coming right up after this break, Anna Little. We'll go in and talk about that State of the Union address last night, and we're going to talk about this Republican majority. Is it a good thing? Is it a so-so thing? What's really going on there? But we're coming to you live from Conservative Commando's Radio Network Studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM FM 24/7. These are all .coms. I'm Sharon Angle. I'm here with Anna Little, and we're coming to you live from Philadelphia with Conservative Commando's radio show right after this break.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. 1 p.m., log on to roarradio.net. And 9 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Sharon Engel, we've got a great lineup today. Do you want to talk to the listeners about who we're going to have on the show?
Well, I think that you have the very first guest, and
you're right, I do. Yep, his name is Doug, I think it's Sackleben. And Doug joined the Club for Growth in 2015 after working on Capitol Hill for several members of Congress. He's also worked in radio broadcasting, having covered Congress for the Salem Radio Network, and he graduated with a BA in Communications from Temple University and a master's degree in Public Policy from Liberty University, and he's going to talk to us about the Club for Growth and their reaction to President Obama's final State of the Union address. So we are definitely going to talk about the State of the Union today.
And I'm not sure how many of our listeners are aware of Club for Growth. They are a PAC that's been around for years. They do bundling is what they do, but they are a force to be reckoned with in races for Congress, and especially open seat races for the U.S. Senate and the U.S. Congress. So when they weigh in on the conservative side. They're very fiscally conservative, and they don't mind social conservatives. They say that those with principles are the ones they want running for office, and I couldn't agree more. But it'll be interesting to talk to them about what's coming up, not just about the state of the state, but what's coming up. Do they see anyone on the horizon that's got the courage to go forward in Congress that's running this time? And so it'll be fun to talk with him. At 4:05, we've got former Congressman Paul Brown, who's a doctor and a primary care physician who represented the 10th Congressional District of Georgia. And while serving in Congress, he's been appointed to the House Homeland Security Committee, the House Committee on Natural Resources, and currently serves as chairman of the Investigations and Oversight Committee for the House Science and Technology Committee. And he's going to also give us his take on the State of the Union address last night. So we'll have back-to-back, one from the congressional side and one, if you will, from the PAC side, or the lobbying interests in Washington, D.C. And then finally, at 4:35, our good friend Joe Messina, who's the host of the Real Side radio show, which is rebroadcast in 42 states and 38 countries and on the internet, and was recently picked up by USA Radio Networks. He began his radio career after being asked to fill in for a host who canceled on short notice. Joe grabbed a Democrat and a Republican and stirred it up, and after that he was asked to do a 1-hour weekly show that quickly expanded into a 2-hour and then a 3-hour show. Joe is a no-nonsense conservative realist, and he's interested in hearing both sides and has no problem taking on taboo subjects with real questions, looking for real answers, race, religion, racism, and politics are all open season on his show. And he's written an article, No Need to Fear the Refugees, and that ends with a question mark. So Joe's going to be on. Joe is a good friend from Santa Clarita, California, but he keeps abreast of everything in the nation, and he knows what it's like to be a real side, a real truth teller, conservative in the most liberal state in the union, California.
Well, that just sounds like a chock-filled show. We're always right on the edge as far as what's going on. And it seems like with these guests today, Sharon, we're going to be right up to date with the latest on what's going on in America. So that's really exciting stuff. And, you know, I'm looking forward to getting the take of these experts. And I do think we speak with our guests that we speak with are experts in these areas. We're going to get the take of these experts on, you know, the State of the Union and the refugees and the election and whatever else, you know, they think is important. And I just think it's invaluable because you're not getting this through the mainstream media for sure.
Well, that's right. That's right. That's why Conservative Commandos has been on the air for so long, and why we keep gaining more stations and broadcasting out further and further. Our base and our reach is expanding, and the reason is people want truth, and they're tired of going to the same old sources and getting less than accurate information.
Yeah, well, that's true, and that's why they're listening here. So look forward to these guests. And, you know, I wanted to talk just a little bit more about what's going on in the world. You know, I'm always watching Ukraine and Russia, and I know that while we have all these other hot-button issues, I don't like to take our eyes off of what's going on over there. And there is a little bit of news on Russia as recently as 4 hours ago. And it says that Russia's considering slashing. I'm actually quoting from CNN Money, which is not a favorite source, but it's what was 4 hours ago here. Russia is considering slashing its budget by 10% as low oil prices bite into its revenues. So Russia's still having economic trouble. 3 hours ago, ABC News says that Putin claims Russia has invented the world's most effective Ebola drug, which I guess we'll all have to look into. But I think even more importantly, it's Reuters that is reporting 6 hours ago that Russia wants rapprochement with Europe. And I think that's important. You know, Russia's been very, shall we say, imperialistic, especially where it came to Crimea and Ukraine. They marched into Syria, told America to get out. And I do think that a lot of the other things that are going on the world stage distract us from Russia's really inappropriate behavior on the world stage. So I want to know, Sharon, is this concerning to you, and what's your take on what's going on in Russia right now?
Well, I grew up during the Cold War. We were in a couple of situations when I was in the 6th grade and again when I was in the 8th grade, where President John F. Kennedy was dealing with the Russians, and it was frightening, Anna. And I don't think you just get over it when you've been in that position where they truly were an enemy of freedom around the world. And then, of course, we went through the Vietnam War where Russia was backing the Viet Cong, and we've had so many altercations with Russia over the past decades that when Ronald Reagan finally was able to break down the wall in Berlin and pretty much put an end to the tyranny, if you will, of the USSR, we all breathed a sigh of relief. But now Putin has reared up, and it's all because of weakness in our White House. And now, you know, I can't just get away from those childhood fears, I guess. It doesn't seem like a new day dawning. It seems like deja vu, and maybe that's why you keep an eye on them as well.
Well, I do, and I think the reason I do is because the mainstream media, frankly, isn't, and I did not like their behavior in Ukraine. I mean, remember, Ukraine depended on the United States and trusted us when we said, don't worry about getting rid of your nuclear weapons. We'll stand with you against imperialistic Russia. And when they walked in, and when Russia walked into Ukraine and annexed Crimea, we were nowhere to be found. And that really bothered me, especially since the people of Ukraine were using their power as a democracy through their government peacefully to show their dissatisfaction with their leadership. I mean, they were doing everything right, and we didn't stand up for them in their time of need. And, here we have, Russia on the world stage flexing muscle against the United States, partnering with Iran, as they've always done, walking into Syria and taking action, not necessarily contrary, but not on point with what we've been doing there. So I just think we've got to keep our eye on them.
Well, you're exactly right.
Yeah, and we're coming close to a break. How does time fly? I guess we must be having fun, Sharon.
We are, and we're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM FM 24/7. Anna Little and Sharon Angle will be right back with our first guest today, and his name is Doug Sack-Laban. He's from the Club for Growth, and we'll be right back after this break.
Yeah, that's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. we're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos Radio Show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I'm Anna Little, and I'm co-hosting today with Sharon Engel. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and CCRShow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com, 1 p.m., RoarRadio.net, and 9 p.m., HighPlainsDailyNews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our first guest is with us, and the honor of the introduction is mine. Doug Sackleben from Club for Growth is with us today. He's going to talk to us from the nation's largest free enterprise advocacy group, and he's going to offer a reaction to President Obama's final State of the Union address and perhaps a little bit of forecasting or at least discussion on the 2016 Republican presidential primary. Doug joined the Club for Growth in 2015, and after working on Capitol Hill for several members of Congress, he has also worked in radio broadcasting, having covered Congress for the Salem Radio Network. Doug graduated with a BA in Communications from Temple University and a master's degree in Public Policy from Liberty University, and we at Conservative Commandos Radio Show are honored to welcome Doug back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show today. Welcome back, Doug.
Anna, the privilege is mine. Thank you so much to you and Sharon for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome. Now, Doug, tell us about Club for Growth. I think our listeners should already know, but we need to remind them every once in a while.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We have about 100,000 members, and the goal of the Club for Growth kind of twofold. One is to impact policy here in the nation's capital for pro-growth, limited government economic policies, to press for cutting taxes across the board, for cutting spending, cutting federal regulation. We try to hold members of Congress accountable through our key vote alerts, where we let them know this is a bad bill, this is going to expand government or expand spending, and we post that scorecard on our website so that their constituents can see how their members voted. So we go after policy, but then we also, through a couple of PACs that the Club for Growth has, is we try to help members, help people get elected, good, solid conservatives get elected to those positions so they can come and fight for those kinds of policies.
Well, that's very, very important in this day and age because, you know, both parties let us down. The liberal left constantly lets us down, but even sometimes the Republicans let us down. So we need those solid conservative representatives to keep America on track and to keep we the people in charge. So we're very, very appreciative of the work that you do. President Obama, thank God, his term coming to an end. The final State of the Union address happens last night. What's your reaction to it?
We were talking, several of the conservative groups were meeting on Monday before the State of the Union. They're talking about a hashtag, when you go on Twitter and you use the hashtag, try to get attention. And State of the Union is SOTU is usually the State of the Union hashtag. And somebody said, well, this would be, hashtag lame duck SOTU. And somebody else said, well, maybe it should just be lame SOTU. And that's probably where we ended up. This was really just the bookend to 2008. I mean, he came promising hope and change. As we've all seen, not only have we not gotten that, but we've gone in the opposite direction. And last night seemed like the blame game for why he didn't accomplish what he said he would do. When you are as cynical as the president is about this system, and you say that you're going to change it all, and then it doesn't work, then you just come and say, well, it's all broke. It's all the fault of Washington politics. And, of course, he primarily puts that on what he would say is partisan Republicans. And that's what we saw last night, just this fix the political system, and then you'd have all of my ambitious agenda would have been fulfilled. And I think we all know that there was enough of it that was carried out. And it certainly hasn't improved the country in any way. If anything, it's harmed businesses and a lot of individuals and taxpayers in many different ways.
I think in many ways this president may be in denial, and I'll go out and say that word so you don't have to. I mean, the man took office, and we the people disapproved so strongly of what he was doing in office that we took back the House of Representatives with a Republican majority, contrary to his policy, and then went and took back the Senate with a Republican majority, contrary to his policy, and he still seems to speak himself and through his spokesperson, that Josh Ernst guy. He just seems to speak like he's still on top, in charge with a majority, and can do what he's got to do, and it's those nasty Republicans in the way. Frankly, I think it's the nasty we the people in his way. What do you think about that, Doug?
Yeah, I agree, Anna. I mean, the mentality that his agenda must override everything and everyone else is so evident. I mean, you go back to when 2009, when he was inaugurated, 3 days after he takes office, he brings the Republican House, Republican leadership at that point up to the White House, and that's a time for, some level of reaching across the table and trying to work on an agenda together. And that was, of course, where he made the famous statement that elections have consequences. When the Republicans brought forth some ideas that they thought could be worked on and the president maybe could get behind, he reminded them, I won, and elections have consequences. And from the very beginning, that's been the mentality, despite exactly what you said, Anna, despite 2010 and the election then, despite what we saw in 2014, it's never mattered to him that those elections had consequences. It's always been his that has been the one that's overridden everyone else.
Yeah, kind of dictatorish. And again, I said that. You didn't. I want to talk a little bit before, our time flies and we're having fun. We've got a couple minutes before we have to go to a break. But I wanted to get in a little discussion on the candidates coming up in this GOP primary race. And, you've got a presidential white papers at Club for Growth, which I think is very useful to we the people when we go to make our choices, especially those in Iowa, who I guess are going to get the first opportunity to do that in an election-type environment. Talk to us about your presidential white papers.
What we've tried to do, Anna, is take the candidates' records if they have a voting record, otherwise their written record if they've written books or op-eds, or their statements about issues like tax reform, entitlement reform, government spending, school choice, free trade, and we try to put all that together in sort of a summary form with lots of footnotes so people can see the details and they can look at where these candidates stand and what they've fought for over the years, and tried to lay out that there's a lot of good candidates in this field, and there's also some who've really kind of stretched the bounds sometimes on conservative economic policy in some of the positions they've been in. And we just try to leave those facts there for people to look at and to consider at least where they are in terms of limited government economic policies.
Well, that's wonderful. I want to thank you so much for that very, very hard work. And I think, at this point in time, we the people need that kind of analysis in front of us because we're not getting enough media attention to all of the candidates. it seems like the Donald kind of sucks the media's attention, and the other candidates really don't get a chance to get their voice out there unless they're standing on the debate stage. And we all know the media kind of controls who's on what stage there. And, ad buys, they're expensive. So it's very important that we have a group like Club for Growth that's willing to go ahead out and do that analysis and make it available to we the people, we the voters, so that we actually know who we're voting for when the time comes and we can make an informed decision. Now, Doug, we're going to have to identify the station. It'll take us about 2 minutes. Can you hold on?
Sure can.
Thank you so much. Listeners, we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all.com. I'm Anna Little. I'm co-hosting today with Sharon Engel, and we're speaking with Doug Sackleben of Club for Growth. We'll be right back after this break.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm messy, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, ccrshow.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. you can log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, or at 1 p.m. log on to roarradio.net, and at 9 p.m. log on to highplainsdailynews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. This is Sharon Engel, and my co-host today is Emma Little. And we've been talking with Doug Sacklaven of the Club for Growth. Before we went to break, Doug, you were talking about your presidential guide that's available on your website. Have you picked someone that you're backing, or is it still just anybody but Obama and Hillary?
It certainly would be an improvement. Any of the above. We've been big fans. The club's made no secret of being big fans of Senators Cruz, Rubio, and Paul in terms of economic conservative issues. Obviously, people will differ with maybe each of those candidates on other issues. We don't delve into the immigration issue. We don't. The social issues are not in our category. We're looking at taxes, spending, entitlements, trade, those sorts of issues. And on those scorecards there, we would see Senators Cruz and Rubio, and then, of course, obviously Senator Paul has struggled in the polls. But these are guys who've come to Washington and walked the talk, who've fought for lower budgets, who voted for the hard budgets that actually make major cuts in departments and have proposed cuts in departments and proposed cuts in taxes. Obviously, they've all fought the uphill battle against Senate Democrat leadership for years, and then against their own establishment leadership in the Senate. But those are three guys anyway that we've thought have done a really good job.
Well, I know the grassroots has kind of got a bad taste in their mouth from the senator that's in the White House right now, and they were looking to the governors, but the governors aren't doing so well. What do you think that's about, Doug?
Well, it's so interesting. I mean, we came out early in our white papers, and we pointed out, if you look at Governor Bush's time in Florida on economic issues, did a lot of really important things and led well on those issues. And likewise, Governor Walker was courageous in Wisconsin in taking on the public unions. And neither one seemed to be able to catch on. Governor Bush, obviously, it seems like, has moderated positions over the years. It's been tough to kind of nail him down, and it's been tough to see the same passion and fight that seemed to be there in some of those days in Florida. And you're right. I think people were hungry for somebody with that kind of executive leadership, but we're down to, Governor Christie and Governor Kasich, and the club has picked on both in our white papers for Medicaid expansion. We think both have given Obamacare a little bit too much of a pass in that, but doesn't seem to be a strong conservative governor at this point in the race.
Well, and now we get to the elephant in the room. You haven't mentioned Donald Trump, and I know at our National Federation of Republican Assemblies endorsing convention in August, we had him come as a speaker, but we didn't endorse him either. And I was wondering what your reasons were for not mentioning him.
Right. We've done the white paper on Donald Trump, and frankly, the club's one of its super PAC has done ads in Iowa dealing with Trump's record. We feel, and first of all, understand that a lot of conservatives are fed up. I mean, they've had it with Washington, and Trump obviously is touching a nerve there from the outsider point of view. The question that we've had is he the solution for that? Because his record is so marked up with issues of eminent domain, attempting to use eminent domain for personal gain, for at one time advocating for the largest tax increase in the nation's history as a debt solution. He still said that under the right circumstances, he would do that all day long, that tax increase. So he still hasn't dismissed that as a bad idea. And the same thing on health care. He, for a long time, was very liberal in health care, and as recently as September on 60 Minutes said the government still needs to make sure that everybody has health care and the government needs to pay for it. So there's still these issues that, to us, and also the unwillingness to tackle entitlements at all and just take the belief that they'll fix themselves with a good economy. We're concerned by those issues and by his takes on those.
And now tell me about the other one that's the outsider who seemed to have gained some momentum, and now he's kind of slipping, and that's Dr. Ben Carson.
Yeah, we did a white paper on Dr. Carson as well, and pointed out that guy who's got obviously a great American story, and I think that was certainly behind his early rise in the polls. But one of the things we found on economic issues as we tracked him, I think came to bear in a lot of the other major issues over the course of the campaign, and that is he just seemed to be uncertain and vague on certain policies. He had an idea in terms of health care that would put some pretty harsh regulation on insurance companies in terms of how much profit they could even make, and then some of that profit would be sliced off and used for another kind of funding for higher risk individuals. Just ideas that contradicted what seemed to be his intent, which was to be a free market kind of guy. But I think as folks found during the campaign, there were these areas where he just hadn't seemed to quite come up to speed on where he was on those issues, and moved a little bit too much to at least raise some concerns, and that's what we raised in our paper, was just some concerns.
Now, the Club for Growth is really prominent in congressional open Congress seats and open Senate seats. That's where you really shine and are able to really make a difference. And I know that the grassroots has had it up to their eyebrows, if you will, with a lack of fortitude in Washington, D.C. It seems like there is just no courage there. And that's why, as you said, Donald Trump seems to be striking a chord, because he's talking leadership, he's talking tough leadership, and there really seems to be a vacuum when it comes to that. Do you see another change, perhaps a more conservative push in some of the open seats that we've got now in the U.S. Senate and the U.S. Congress, or do you think we're just going to go status quo and concentrate on the presidential race?
I want to say that the former is true. That there is a push. I don't know if it comes to bear by the time we get to November, but we've seen more outsider conservative candidates come to us and talk to us about endorsements than we've seen in a long, long time. I mean, just as you recall, Sharon, 2010 was a monumental year, and a lot of that was anger at the Democrats for what they had done in health care. This time around, it's anger at the Republican Party for having seemed to squander its majority here in Washington. And so we see a lot of challenges going on, even of incumbents. The club's got involved in a couple of races, taking on Renee Elmers in North Carolina and John Shimkus out in Illinois. And we're looking at some of these other races. John Boehner's old seat, we've endorsed in that one. So there are some great openings out there and great opportunities. The question is there time for these outsiders to get together a campaign, to do the fundraising that's necessary to take on an incumbent? Nobody likes to hear that the money issue, and that's understandable, but unfortunately the fundraising makes such a difference in getting that message out, and it's a challenge for a lot of those who are trying to come in as outsiders at this point in the contest.
Well, I want to bring my co-host into this, Anna Little, and we're going to have just kind of a three-for-all here, all three of us, just summing this up. So, Anna, do you have any last questions for Doug?
Well, Doug, I just wanted to kind of get at the whole Hillary Clinton thing, and I know she's not our candidate under any circumstances, but given that we're discussing this presidential race, do you think she's going to be the nominee? How strongly do you think the pressure from the law enforcement side of things is going to catch up with her in the coming weeks relative to the emails and the deceit of the American people? I know there's been a scramble federally with regard to those Freedom of Information Act requests that now need to be changed. And so, talk to us a little bit about your take on that.
Yeah, I'll confess I don't have any insider ideas here, but I would say that I think the fact that we're seeing Bernie Sanders, and you talk about far left policies, and the fact that he's rising in the polls certainly tells you Democrats are getting uneasy about this, and there's really not a plan B at this point, because you're getting so late in candidates being able to file to run in races, that if the FBI investigations, which seem to be very real and ramping up in terms of both the Clinton Foundation and Hillary's time at the State Department, if that turns something up and Bernie Sanders is the backup plan, it says something about where the Democratic Party is at in terms of an agenda of giving away free stuff. It's really hit its max at that point.
Well, it seems like there's always this idea that there's Joe Biden in the wings. There's someone in the wings that's just going to spring up here when both of these candidates crash and burn. Do you think that's likely?
I guess this campaign season we're probably learning to never rule anything out. But there is it's state laws that come into play in so much of this filing that the challenge, the expectation that the Democratic Party could maybe somehow come in and manipulate stuff to push a new candidate in there somehow and ramp them up that fast, I think would be severely challenged, just because I think state laws are going to make it harder for them to get on the ballot in all of these different races. But you know, as we've seen this cycle, there's a lot of things that really have been very unpredictable.
Agreed. Well, Doug, time flies when we're having fun. We've got to wrap it up. Would you just remind our listeners where they can find your work at Club for Growth and also the presidential white paper?
Absolutely. They can check out our website at clubforgrowth.org, and they'll find out all about the issues that we're fighting for, the candidates we're endorsing at clubforgrowth.org. There's a link there to our white papers, but also if they just want to go straight to that site, it's presidentialwhitepapers.com, and they'll see all the work that we've done on these major Republican candidates.
Thank you so much for taking time with us on Conservative Commando's radio show today, and I hope that you'll come back and see us again soon.
Sure will, Sharon. Anna, thank you so much for having me on.
Okay,
thank you.
Take care. God bless.
God bless you.
That was Doug Sackleben. He's with Club for Growth, and he's been working on Capitol Hill with several members of Congress prior. He's given you the website for Club for Growth. He's told you to check out the presidential white papers, and we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .com. I'm Anna Little. My co-host is Sharon Engel, and we'll be right back with you after this break.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard. From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
You are listening to the Conservative Commando radio show with Anna Little and Sharon Angle. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, ccrshow.com, or mornings at 9 a.m. you can log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, or at 1 p.m. log on to roarradio.net, and at 9 p.m. you can log on to highplainsdailynews.com. Now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. And Anna, we have our next guest, and it's my honor to introduce Congressman Paul Brown, who's a doctor. He's a primary care physician who represented the 10th Congressional District of Georgia. And while serving in Congress, he's been appointed to the House Homeland Security Committee, the House Committee on Natural Resources, and as chairman of the Investigations and Oversight Subcommittee for the House Science and Technology Committee. Congressman Brown, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Sharon Angle, it's great being with you and with Anna today, and the girls rule today, huh? Y'all say, y'all ran Rick off.
That's right.
That's good.
It is good. Well, it's so good to have you on our show again, Dr. Brown. And we want to talk to you a little bit about your take on the State of the Union address last night. We've heard already some are calling it the lame duck address or the lame State of the Union address. So we want to get your take. Did you think it was lame, first off? And if it was lame, why was it?
I think Barack Obama was very confused. He was giving a speech for the Democratic National Convention, not a State of the Union address last night. It was a great speech that he should be giving this summer somewhere instead of giving it in the halls of Congress. I sat there and watched it. I applauded one time, and that's when he said that we have the greatest men and women serving in the U.S. military, and I believe that. I was in the military up until last year, actually, about a year and a half ago. I was in the Navy Reserve. I'm a U.S. Marine. I got back in the Navy Reserve in 2010 just so I could be deployed. Was deployed to Afghanistan in 2012. And I'm telling you, we've got a great military, but this president has been busily trying to destroy our defense capability and does not give support to our troops, our men and women who are serving all across the world as we should. And that's the saddest thing to me, is that we're not doing what we should be doing constitutionally, and that's having a strong national defense. We need to be building our military and not tearing it down. So it was a political speech. To me, it sounded as if he ought to be giving it to all the delegates at the Democratic National Convention this summer.
Well, and I think you're right. I guess the cynics among us don't even believe that he's really that supportive of the military, that he just says those things so he can get everyone to applaud, because who wouldn't applaud our military? But really, I don't find him to be pro-military.
Well, I think he has a hatred for the military, frankly. He finally said we're the strongest nation militarily in the world. We need to be stronger. We do not have enough brigades in the U.S. Army. We do not have enough ships in the U.S. Navy, and he's taking it down to World War I levels. We don't have enough wings of the U.S. Air Force, and God knows we don't have enough Marines. We need to be building our defense capability. We've got to take care of our men and women who are serving, and we have to take care of our veterans. He made a comment about our veterans, but just recently, this administration has cut out the veterans' retirements. If we don't take care of our military people after they serve, then how are we going to get good people to come in the military to be senior enlisted personnel, senior NCOs as we call them in the military, senior officers or flag officers? Those are the generals and admirals. It's just not going to happen. We're not treating our men and women who are serving today in the manner that we need to be serving them. We're not taking care of them. We're cutting their benefits. Actually, a federal worker has better benefits than the military does. Some bureaucrat sitting in Washington pushing pencils actually gets better retirement and more perks than our military personnel, and it's just not right.
Well, we see this, though, over and over and over again with this administration. Talk to us a little bit about what those of us that are on the outside looking in feel is a Congress that can't get anything done, that they are unwilling. Is that really the case? What's going on inside that keeps this man able to do all of the things he's been doing in spite of having the Republican majority in both houses?
Well, John Boehner and now Paul Ryan, as well as Mitch McConnell, just capitulate to whatever the president wants and just continues to give him every bit of policy that that Barack Obama puts on the table. We're the government supporting all of the radical policies, such as the amnesty program, continuing to fund Planned Parenthood, continuing to fund the Syrian refugee program, which is, to me, a tremendous threat to our own national security and the safety of Americans. ISIS has already said that they're going to put 4,000 ISIS fighters embedded into the Syrian refugees to go into Western Europe and to the United States and Canada. And Barack Obama just opens the doors and say, come on in. We're going to, I think, see some of these attacks, as we saw in San Bernardino, California, more and more with these Syrian refugees. It must stop. And the problem is the leadership of the House and the Senate. I joined several conservatives to try to stop Paul Ryan from being the speaker. I like Paul Ryan personally. He's a very personal guy, and I consider him a friend, but he should not be the speaker. John Boehner should not have been the speaker. In fact, I did not vote for John Boehner in the last Congress to be Speaker. I voted for my good friend Alan West. We need to have a Speaker. We need to have a majority leader in the U.S. Senate who's going to stand up to this president's radical agenda, and none of the leadership will. Plus, we don't have enough good, solid conservatives in the House nor in the Senate. That's what our group, the TeaPartyLeadership.com, the TeaPartyLeadershipFund.com, excuse me, the TeaPartyLeadershipFund.com is all about, is trying to help get the right kind of people elected who are going to stand firm on the Constitution as our founding fathers meant for it to be, who is going to say no to President Obama, say no to Paul Ryan, say no to Mitch McConnell. We've got to get good, solid conservatives who believe in limited government, enumerated powers as our founding fathers meant for them to be, and that's what we're doing in the TeaPartyLeadershipFund.com. And I encourage our listeners to go on that website and help us in that process of saving America. The TeaPartyLeadershipFund.com.
Well, even though we're on radio, Congressman Paul Brown, I want to give you a standing ovation for telling the truth. We out here in the grassroots have been watching this and saying that's what's wrong in Washington, D.C., is there is no courage there, and they are, as you say, capitulating to this president rather than taking their constitutionally and I believe God-given role in our government, which is to stop some of this outside of the law or lawlessness in the White House.
Absolutely. In fact, this president is acting like a dictator, and the former Speaker John Boehner, now the Speaker Paul Ryan, as well as Mitch McConnell, are letting him get by with it. This ominous omnibus bill that they passed that continues to fund every single bit of terrible policy that this president's put in place. Everything is funded. Then they pass a bill to that goes to Barack Obama's desk that helps to defund Planned Parenthood. They knew that was going to be vetoed by the president. It was just to show what they should have done is not pass the omnibus bill. And of course, what they say is, well, if we pass a budget bill or a spending bill that doesn't have the president's policies put in place, if we don't fund those things, then the government will shut down because he'll veto it. Well, let President Obama shut the government down. To stop him, we must do that. But John Boehner was absolutely petrified of a government shutdown. Paul Ryan, likewise. Mitch McConnell is as well. The thing is, when the government shut down in October of a couple of years ago, it was Harry Reid that shut the government down. But then what happened? John Boehner blamed people like me, conservatives, who tried to stop the implementation of Obamacare. And they're funding Obamacare. They're funding all these bad policies and are doing nothing to stop it. And this bill that they passed to try to stop Obamacare and to defund Planned Parenthood is nothing but just theatrics. It's not, they've already put in place all of that policy in the funding bill, and they're just trying to get reelected. We've got to throw these bums out. We've got to put people in place.
I hate to interrupt you when you're in this passionate place. Please hold on to that thought, because we have to take a short break, and we'd like you to come back in about 2 minutes. Is that possible?
You bet.
Can you stay with us?
You bet.
Great. We're talking with Congressman Paul Brown, mostly about the State of the Union address, but we've gotten into now incumbency, and we're going to come back with Congressman Brown, Sharon Engel, and Anna Little right after this break. We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, not K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. These are all .coms. We'll be right back with Anna Little, Sharon Engel, and Congressman Paul Brown after this break.
I really don't care. care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.
Businessman there, drink my wine.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Sharon Engel and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and CCRShow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to LeadingEdgeRadioNetwork.com. 1 p.m., RoarRadio.net. And 9 p.m., HighPlainsDailyNews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. This segment, we've been speaking with former Congressman Paul Brown. Dr. Brown is a primary care physician, and he represented the 10th Congressional District of Georgia, and he's been talking to us about last night's State of the Union message. Sharon Engel had him for the first half, and I'm Anna Little. I'm jumping right in. Dr. Brown, thank you for waiting through the break.
Hey, Anna, good to talk to you again. Glad to be with y'all. It's always a blessing and an honor to be with you.
Yeah. Well, I've been listening to your segment with Sharon just prior to the break, and I just want to jump in from a slightly different angle. I seem to think this president is out of touch with the people he is supposed to be serving. And, of course, I'm a grassroots conservative. I believe I'm in charge. We, the people, are in charge. He works for us. So I didn't hear much in the State of the Union address about the issues that are on my mind as an American. I didn't hear anything about the economy that made me think there's hope for my children. I didn't hear anything about spending or the deficit. I did hear a lot of discussion of rancor and division among us. I've seen the agenda of the far left that he tends to cooperate with in demonizing folks, from immigrants to poor people to the Republicans themselves who have the majority in 2 houses of the legislature. Talk to me. What issues do you think, Congressman, are on the minds of Americans today? And do you think this president hears that, or is he on another agenda?
And I think he is on his own agenda and has been for 7 years now. And his agenda he expressed very early on. He said that he wanted to radically change America. He believes in a socialistic type of society. He talked last night about getting rid of regulations, but he's put on tremendous number of regulations. We're chasing jobs offshore. Problem is, George W. Bush did the same thing as well. Neither one of them understand the Constitution. Neither one of them understand the ideas of limited government. And the problem is, we the people are going to have to stand up. We have to have a revolution at the ballot box. And this year is the year to do that. Barack Obama, as you said, Anna, is not listening to the American people. He's going through his own agenda. He said last night that he's going to continue on his radical leftist socialistic agenda, but he wasn't going to talk about that very much. He did talk a little bit about he wants to change the voting so that everybody can vote. What he's saying is that he wants all these illegal aliens in this country to be able to vote so that they will continue to vote for more government largesse, thus vote for Democrats. In the medical clinic where I work, I see illegal aliens all the time. Every day I'm working, I see illegal aliens that are on Medicaid, and and they're getting food stamps, they're getting government subsidies. We don't have the money to do that. They're here, they're lawbreakers. They've broken many, many laws, and Barack Obama, as a good example of not listening to people, is continue to promote more and more government largesse to all these illegal aliens, these lawbreakers that are in this country. And it's just got to stop. The American people have to stand up and say no. That's what we're doing at theteapartyleadership.com, is trying to get funds so we can help the right kind of people to get elected to the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. Anna, we've got to change Congress. Just changing the president is not going to radically make a difference in the next Congress for the next 4 years. No matter who the president is, we've got to change the philosophy of the leadership in Congress. I know I'm going on and on here, but you just have to look what happened. The Freedom Caucus, which is supposed to be the really solid conservatives in the U.S. House, 2/3 of them endorsed Paul Ryan, who's nothing but a policy wonk. He's always been a government employee from the time he was a young man. He started off as a staffer for U.S. Senator Kemp, and he's been a Washington wonk all along. He believes in big government. He's not a conservative. He claims to be. John Boehner claims to be a conservative. Folks across the board in the Republican Party claim to be conservatives. Even some Democrats claim to be conservatives. They need to go. And it's up to the American people to stand up and say, no, we're not going to continue with this. And you're exactly right. Barack Obama was just promoting his radical leftist agenda last night, and the Democrats want to go right down the line with him, but unfortunately, most Republicans do too. We've got to change Congress. That's the only way we're going to make a difference.
Well, I think that needs to be the focus, and I agree with you, because the legacy of this president is, as it stands today, Obamacare, a one-sided agreement with Iran, likewise a one-sided agreement with China, closing Gitmo and sending the terrorists back to do more terrorist activity against us, and the world is generally on fire. I think this can't be any more important. I'm going to turn it quickly over to Sharon Engel. Sharon Engel.
Thanks, Anna.
Yeah, I just want to ask one more question because we've got 1 minute to go, Congressman Brown, and this is just... you talk about changing Congress. Talk about your fun for a minute, and talk about, will you support Republicans against the incumbent Republicans that have been voting wrong?
Oh, absolutely. We've got to primary these Republicans. I would like to see us be able to primary every single Republican that voted for the omnibus bill. They all need to go. If they're voting for that, they're voting for Barack Obama's radical leftist agenda. So they're supporting that radical leftist agenda. We've got to throw all those people out of office and put people in place that understand that the Constitution limits the powers of government, limits the powers of the president, limits the powers of Congress, limits the powers of the Supreme Court. Congress is supposed to be the strongest branch of the federal government. It's the weakest today because of the leadership. We've got to change Congress. That's what the Tea Party Leadership Fund.com is all about. And I encourage our listeners to go on that website, the Tea Party Leadership Fund.com, and help us to save America. We also have another website, Sharon, that's we invite people to go on. It's called TeaPartyPrimary.org. We ask people to vote for the top 3 Republican candidates that they think will help to bring about the change. So that is TeaPartyPrimary.org. But more importantly is go and contribute and be a part of the Tea Party Leadership Fund.com.
The Tea Party Leadership Fund.com. And unfortunately, we're out of time. Congressman Paul Brown, it's been our pleasure to have you here with us today. Will you come back and talk with us again?
Anytime you invite me that I can possibly come. I love this program. I love what y'all do here. And y'all have been good friends for a long time, and it's always a blessing to me. The conservative commandos rule as far as trying to teach people what they need to be doing to save America. I believe in the conservative commandos.
Thank you so much, Congressman Paul Brown, for being our guest. We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM/FM 24/7. Those are all .coms. We'll be right back after this short message with Anna Little, Sharon Engel, and our next guest, Joe Messina.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
You are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and Anna Little. And if you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., you can log on to leadingedgeradio.net. leadingedgeradionetwork.com. Or at 1 p.m., log on to rawradio.net. Or at 9 p.m., log on to highplainsdailynews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. Anna, our next guest, our final guest, is ready, and it's my honor to introduce Joe Messina, who is the host of the Real Side radio show, which is broadcast in 42 states, 38 countries, and on the Internet, and was recently picked up by USA Radio Network. He began his radio career after being asked to fill in for a host who canceled on short notice. Joe grabbed a Democrat and a Republican and stirred it up. After that, he was asked to do a 1-hour weekly show that quickly expanded into a 2-hour show and then to a 3-hour show. Joe is a no-nonsense conservative realist. He is interested in hearing both sides and has no problem taking on taboo subjects with real questions like looking for real answers. Race, religion, racism, and politics are all open season on his show. Joe Messina, welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show.
Boy, Sherry, that's a lot to live up to. I may have to go and practice a little bit more here. I don't know. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the time.
Well, we enjoy you, Joe, because not only do you give us the real side, but you give us the real truth, which is so refreshing in these times of broadcasting where there's such a slant, even with our friends over at Fox News. Ted and I were talking about it last night, that we can feel the slant and feel the bias coming even from that network. So it's great to have Joe Messina and the real side.
Yeah, are you suggesting it's maybe a Bushy Cruz slant? I don't know. I'm not. You mean it's not fair and balanced? Is that kind of where you're heading?
Well, I see Marco Rubio a lot.
Yeah.
I'll just say that.
And you're right. You're seeing Cruz a lot, and then you're seeing them prop up Jeb Bush. I mean, they let him on from time to time. And they don't hit him hard between the eyes. You're exactly right. These guys are running for president. I don't know what they're waiting for.
I don't know either, but we asked you to come on to talk about your latest No Need to Fear Refugees, and you make that a question mark. So I'm assuming, Joe, that you, like the rest of the grassroots, are holding their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop as these refugees flood American shores.
Oh no, I definitely am. Look, I'm from a. You know what I love is when they scream and yell about you white people who don't understand what it's like. Well, let me tell you what. My grandparents came here from Italy, and they came here with the proverbial one suitcase, every nickel that they had, that kind of thing. That I should say, my great uncle came here that way. My grandmother came here because she was an American citizen. She happened to be born in New York when her parents were visiting. So when the Americans went into Italy, they brought out American citizens first, which was her and her family, but they still came with nothing. All right, and they grew their business, and they assimilated. They never lost their Italian heritage, but they assimilated an American way of life. They love the American way of life, and I don't think that they took over an area. It wasn't any of that kind of stuff going on. So those refugees, those people coming from the wars of old, were coming for a better life, a better way to live, a more opportunity in the great land of America. These refugees are not coming for those reasons. Look at what they're doing. What's funny, Sharon, I wrote this piece over the weekend, and one of the pieces I harped on was in Germany over New Year's Eve, or the New Year's period. They had over 100 filed. Now think about that, 100 filed rape complaints. And when the police started to investigate that, they came up with over 1,000 male refugees were involved in these 100 rape cases. And I didn't have any more information than that, other than I was picking up from some of the other papers. And I don't know if you saw it. I think it was Monday afternoon we started to see the protests in the street from the German nationals protesting the refugees and the fact that they weren't being picked up, that the government wasn't being harder on them for these vicious assaults. They're not just rapes. They're not where they just grab a girl, they rape her, and then they just leave her in an alley. They beat her afterward, or they beat almost all of them afterward. This is pretty vicious. Now, my comment to the libs is, listen, before the refugees came in, this was not an issue. Yeah, they had a problem with rape, as some countries do, but it wasn't to this level. It wasn't to this had this kind of effect. So what are you going to blame it on? Some old European white guys? It just so happens this is the time they decided to rise up and started raping ladies. They're not being honest.
Well, and yeah. I think this is really what brought Trump to prominence in the beginning. He started shining the light on exactly what you're talking about. These are brutal rape cases.
Yeah. Well, what I love about this too is if you go look at the comments on this piece, and not just on my website, other sites have picked it up. The libs are just pushing back big time. They don't want this out there. They don't want They don't want this to be known as a normal way of what's happening. It's happening in. I think I wrote down. It's happening in Denmark. It's happening in Norway. You see it in England. Now, England's done a really good job of keeping it quiet until recently, when some information is leaked, where they've had over 1,500 rapes over the last couple of months. And you think about that. You think about how many days there are in 90 days, 120 days, 1,500 rapes with the onslaught of the refugees coming in. So you can only point in one direction here, right? I mean, if you got a brain tumor, you don't operate on your baby finger. You've got to take care of the issue. You've got to take care of the problem. What I also loved was the German mayor. I think it's Cologne is the name of the city, and where a lot of these assaults took place. She tried to spin it onto the women. She tried to say, the women need to prepare themselves for this kind of thing. Think about what she's saying here. Think about if an old, white, Republican conservative guy made this comment, what they would have done to him. Right? But they turned this around, and she says that women need to be prepared. They need to be ready for this kind of thing. They need to be ready to defend themselves or deal with this should the issue arise. Maybe they need to dress differently. Maybe they need to carry themselves differently. Are we serious? I mean, this is
you're exactly right. It's so insulting to women to think that in order to be safe, it's our duty, our preparedness. We're somehow inviting assault. I don't get that at all, Joe. And as a woman, that's terribly offensive. That somehow we're not safe because we're invitational to assault, rather than there are criminals out there who are assaulting people.
And I say, here's the question I would ask that mayor if I had her in front of me. I would say to her, look, so are you telling me that the other women in the refugee camps where rape is almost at 100%, almost every woman in these camps is getting raped, they're Muslim women. Are you telling me that they're not dressed properly They came here with their own. They're part of that religion. They're part of that culture. Are you really going to tell me that that they're bringing it on themselves, right? Now, what an insult to women! You talk about a real war on women, isn't that it?
I think you're exactly right, Joe. It is a real war on women, and even in the United States with this latest attack in San Bernardino, and you live close. We might go there a few minutes just to talk about what happened there with that attack. But even here in the United States, when these attacks come, it isn't arm yourself, be prepared to protect yourself with your gun. It is, no, we've got to take your guns away.
Oh yeah, and the beauty is, remember how this came down. As it was happening, we heard it was 3 white armed masked men, right? And I'm saying to myself, wow, that was fast. Now, if they have masks on, unless somebody's taking a really up close, picture of these guys, how do they know they're white? They got masks on, they got gloves on, they've got suits on. They're hoping and praying it's only white people. And even when it came out, and even when they talked about what these shooters were doing, still nothing, no reference to Islam whatsoever. So I find all that I really truly find all this amazing. That are we so afraid now? Have we been so I don't know. Have we been so conditioned? Or the lower
traumatized
IQ.
Here.
Yeah, all right, traumatized. That's a good one too. And we've been so conditioned in that light that we can't call things as they are. And it's not like you sticking your finger in somebody's face, going, "Yeah, you're one of those Muslims." We shouldn't be doing that either. That's not the way to handle it. But
I want to talk to you more about this, Joe. We have a break that we have to take. Can you stay with us through the break?
Of course I can. Yeah.
Great. We're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios and WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Rebooting Liberty Radio, and AM FM 24/7. Those are all .com. We're going to take a short break now. Anna Little and I, Sharon Angle, will be right back after these messages with our guest, Joe Messina, who's been talking to us about terrorism in this country and what we're doing about it. And he says that it's a joke to say there's no need to fear these refugees. We'll be right back after this message.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, CCRSnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Sharon Engel and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, CCRS Network and ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. 1 p.m., roarradio.net. And 9 p.m., highplainsdailynews.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. I'm Anna Little. My co-host Sharon Engel had the first half of this segment, and I'm going to be talking with Joe Messina for a few minutes here. Joe Messina, host of The Real Side, is joining us to talk about his article entitled, No Need to Fear the Refugees? ? Joe, thank you so much for waiting through that break. We do appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate being on. I appreciate the time you give me.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I've got to tell you, I had to go back after listening to you and Sharon during that segment and look at some definitions because I'm getting a little lost in this president's agenda with regard to these refugees. And a refugee, according to the definition I found, is a person who's been forced, emphasis on the word forced, to leave their country in order to escape war, persecution, or natural disaster. I thought then, because I happen to, in my day job, be an immigration lawyer, I thought then about asylum and this thing called temporary protected status, so I'll just throw those out into the discussion. Asylum is granted by a nation to someone who has left their native country as a political refugee. I'm not sure too many of these actually qualify for that. It's also an institution offering shelter and support to people who are mentally ill, completely different use of the word. So the political refugee idea there. And then temporary protected status, which is really granted by the United States. I don't know of any other countries that really do grant this kind of status. And I looked at what we've granted to Syria. This has been designated to September 30th of 2016. And frankly, if you're physically here and you have habitually resided there, that's all the requirements are. So, Joe, it's really quite an open door for anybody from Syria to get physically present in the United States before September 30th of 2016 and go ahead and make an application and say they previously habitually resided in Syria, and there's not a whole lot of examination into whether or not they're actually a refugee or whether they're eligible for any kind of asylum based on politics. Don't we open ourselves to terrorism when we allow that?
Of course we do. If no check, no background check. I don't know how you do a background check. I mean, we're talking about Syria here. No common sense way to check anybody out or to put any kind of guidelines in place. I mean, is that kind of what we're doing here? We're just opening up our arms and saying, come on in, we'll protect you, we'll save you. You've seen some of the interviews that I've seen from the refugees themselves. They're looking for temporary safety. They're not looking to move in. Why would you bring them all the way to America when a lot of them don't even want to be here, except for the ones we know that want to be here to cause trouble? If they really want to come in, if they really want asylum or a safe place to be, I'm sure there are other ways we can come up with to make... Look, we opened up closed military bases for the tonnage that came over our southern borders, right? What for? Not to house them, but to house them temporarily, get the medical care, and then release them into society. I think you've done this these stats before. What's it? 92% of them are not showing up for their immigration hearings, and so now we've got to put resources into go finding those people. That's awful nice. So if you really want to bring the Syrians here, or anybody here, or you have this need, or a president who just doesn't want to pay attention to the law, and you bring them here, put them in those military camps. There's no guarantee that we're going to give them a house in the suburbs and let them run loose in our neighborhoods. Let's find out why they're here. Let's do a little work, a little background work with them. Maybe it's not even background work. Let's watch and see how they handle themselves. Remember, in that article I wrote, a major portion of those women being raped were being raped in the refugee camps. So these are your own people, right? People from your neighborhood. Really?
Yeah. Well, I think some of the difficulty I'm having with the entire concept is that there is such a distance between here and Syria that it doesn't quite make sense to me why you would relocate refugees who eventually need to go back home. I mean, even temporary protected status here in the United States requires these people to eventually go back home, which you and I know is unlikely to occur once they're here and they're into our society. Why are we not? Listen, we've got to fight this enemy, right, Joe? Better to fight them where they are now than to have to fight them here on the homeland, which is what has already begun to happen. Why aren't we being more aggressive, taking matters at hand in the Middle East and setting up camps close to home for temporary relocation while we help put order back where it should be so these people can walk across the border back where they belong? This is just, a layman's examination, as I have no inside military information on this, but I really don't understand why we're not more aggressive as a leader in getting this under control in the Middle East now before it's even more active here in the States. What are your thoughts?
I don't think you can get Syria under control. The reason being is now that we've allowed Putin to play in the game, we've given him a license to come in. Right now, you don't have two major powers, or you don't have the two stronger powers on the same page for the ultimate result. Putin doesn't want what's his name? I can't think of the president of Syria. He doesn't want the president of Syria gone. They're buddies. He's thinking about giving him...
He's got a different agenda than we do.
Our
folks go in there, try to stop Christians from being beheaded just for being a Christian, and saving people who are detained awaiting their execution. And Putin goes in to try to prop up a dictator. I mean, we just are coming from different angles there.
Totally different. Right, so what are we going to do? Now, here's the other thing. We could set up camps there. We could set up areas to protect them, safe zones, if you would. Maybe not right inside of Syria, but there has been talks around it. It would be exponentially cheaper to do that. It would cost us between $5,000 and $8,000 a refugee if we do it there. Okay, if we bring them here, it costs us between $60,000 and $80,000 to bring them here. So,
Joe, here's the $1 million question then. Does it not further the agenda of the jihadists when we start to move people around the globe this way?
Oh, sure. Look,
their goal is
right.
World domination. I mean, I'm not saying every refugee is a jihadist, but if there are a few among them, it certainly serves their purpose in being moved around this way. We've got to be very careful what we do. With that, I'm going to bring Sharon Engel back into the conversation. Sharon, come on in.
Well, thanks a lot for being on our show. Joe, you really have shown a light that I don't think very many people are looking at. When you start talking about this kind of brutal crime, and it's not just anybody anywhere. It's inside these camps, and it's these Muslim refugees that are perpetrators of these crimes. And yet, as you point out in your article, even one young girl who was raped didn't want to report on her rapist because she was afraid he might get deported.
Is that sad?
That's just backwards.
We have been so conditioned. I mean, this poor woman has to go through the rest of her life knowing that she was raped by an animal, and I do mean that sincerely, an animal, and she was more concerned about the damage that would be done to his life than has already been done to hers. It's sick.
It is, and unfortunately, we're going to have to leave our interview right there because we've run completely out of time. But, Joe, we want you to tell our listeners where they can read the article for themselves, because it's a well-researched article. You've brought out things that I don't think anybody else is reporting on, Joe, and we need to hear the truth about what's coming into our country and what's being allowed to happen to us.
Well, I appreciate that very much. If you head over to therealside.com, it's a website, therealside.com, everything's there. The articles that I write weekly during my show, you can watch live, listen live, the whole 9 yards. And you get more information about the show and about me there as well. And I hope you read some of the other articles. We've got 9 great writers on the site, and they do research. They do great research as well. And, guys, thanks for having me on. And, Sharon, you've got to come on my show soon.
And I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much, Joe Messina, for being on Conservative Commandos Radio. We always enjoy having truth tellers here. Anna, we're right up against it. The end of the show.
It's true. And, I always enjoy spending time with you, Sharon. I hope our listeners have enjoyed it as much as I have. And I want to thank all of our guests. We've had Doug Sackleben of Club for Growth. We've had former Congressman Paul Brown, also a medical doctor. And we've had Joe Messina. But for right now, we've got to run. We've got to go. So we'll see you, Conservative Commandos. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio.
WNJC, Washington Township, Philadelphia. Philadelphia's Renaissance radio station. Brought to you from Forsyth Broadcasting. Or listen to us at WNJCradio.com.